Thank you very much, Bliss, and thank you very much for coming out. There's so many things that you could be doing on a beautiful Sabbath afternoon like this. I appreciate you coming out and spending time with me today to talk about one of my favorite topics. It's nutrition. Of all the things that I do, my focus is on correct nutrition. That's one of the things that we have a lot of opportunity to do something about. You can't do a whole lot about the air, about the water that you get in your fountain, but you can do a lot about what's put on your plate. And what I like to cover in the four presentations I have the opportunity of presenting in these couple of days is part of the most powerful system known to man for preventing and reversing all chronic degenerative diseases. And I'm going to put it in a context for you. There's a lot of different health systems in there. There are many ways of practicing the healing arts, but there's only one that heaven approves. And that's the most powerful system. And I hope that at the end of this, you'll appreciate how powerful this system really is. And when I do this presentation, whether it's a 2-series presentation, 3-series, or a lot of times I do 10 to 14 at a time, this is the one I like to start out with, because this one basically sets a good baseline for nutrition. It's called the hierarchy of nutrients, and you might see it under different titles. I have it on my website. It's Let Food Be Your Medicine. But this is the foundational presentation. It's what I like to call my flagship presentation. You've never seen nutrition presented like this. And if you have, you might have seen it in a previous presentation that I've done or things of that nature. In my school, I have a couple of my very valued students here and even some of the clients that I worked with in the past. As a matter of fact, one is getting ready to do a 50-miler. So if you want to really know how to apply this stuff and to be able to not only reverse chronic degenerative diseases, but perform better if you're healthy. We're going to give you a context now. It's a unique model. Now, let me tell you what the qualifications are to be able to understand what I'm talking about. You know, there's all kinds of stuff out there about nutrition in there. People are talking about limonene and disaccharides and terpenoids and superoxide dismutase and the Ayurvedic diet, the macrobiotic diet, the zone diet, Nutrisystem, all these different diets. What I want to do is give you a context, a real context, a construct that nobody will ever be able to confuse you about diet. You'll be able to say, how does it fit in this model? And most people like this. It's a requirement. I don't care if you're in one of my certificate programs or my doctoral program. In our school, we have people. We give you credit for academic and life experiences. And we have people that are medical doctors, and they also are acupuncturists, and they run lifestyle centers. When they come to our school, the guy that did the best, he only had to take 2 courses. This was one of them. I don't care how bright you are, you have to take this. And you don't have to agree with me. But I want you to know what we're all about. And so there's 2 courses you have to take. You have to take Concepts of Original Medicine. So you need to know what it's all about. And then I want you to know what my view is on nutrition. You don't have to accept it. You have to pass it if you want to get a good grade. But that's what I'm going to take you through. Now, let me tell you what the qualification is. You need to have a 3rd grade education in common sense. When I started doing this about 15, 20 years ago, I used to say 6th grade education in common sense. And then when I would ask questions, there was this 4th grader who had all these intelligent questions, so I had to lower the bar to 3rd grade education common sense. So if you have a 3rd grade education common sense, you're going to understand everything that I'm going to talk to you about today. It is part of the most powerful system known to man, and it's a very powerful way to look at nutrition. And like I said, I have a couple of my valued students here. And I told them to make sure I get this right. So if I don't get it right, they're going to correct me, and I'll do the correction in the next presentation. But look at what I want to talk to you. I want to tell you everything you need to know about nutrition. And at the end of this, tell me if there's anything I tell you that you don't need to know about nutrition. It's a very powerful way to look at it. It's biblically based. It's time-honored. Okay? So with that, let's have some context. There are 7 major requirements that you have for the body to function, right? Nutrients that you have to have. You have to have water, you have to have carbohydrates, amino acids, that's protein. Incidentally, you're going to find out, well, where does protein fit into this? Where does vinegar fit? Where does the veggie bacon fit? Where does wham, scram, and all these other Analogs fit. Where does everything fit? You're going to have a really good context to be able to answer. And this is what I do. When people call me literally from all over the world, ask me about their health issues or this diet or this program, I get them in my email all the time. This is the context that I use, okay? Fatty acids, vitamins, minerals, enzymes. That's basically it. You have to have that in order to be able to function. So let's have some context. Why have all this nutrition if it's not for a reason? And the purpose of it is so that we can see, well, how does it fit in the health continuum? And you know, what I want to present to you is this continuum from wellness to illness, the health continuum, from dynamic vitality, optimum health, suboptimum health, and debilitating illness. Okay? What you're going to like about this presentation is you're going to help me build it. Isn't that nice? So with this, you take 100% of the population. What percentage of the population do you think fit in dynamic vitality? These are the people you hate. They don't even have to eat well. They might drink every now and then. They live to 90. And those are the ones that they talk about. Look at this guy. He doesn't do any of this stuff. Now, that might be true. And you know, some people have a high, what is called an HQ. You know, some people have high IQs. They don't have to study and they still get A's. Some people have high health quotients. They can take a lot of liberties. You hate these people, okay? And there's a group of people that fit into that. Now, if you do this program, you stay in that program, and you can serve God better because you have much more energy and much more vitality, and you bring much more honor and glory to Him by following His system of nutrition that we're going to talk about. But what percentage of the population you think fits in that? Anybody? 1%? Okay, do I hear higher? 25%? 2.5%. Do I hear higher? Anybody? Let's start up. How many people think 20% or more? How many people think 15? Okay, I got a couple of hands. 10. 5. Okay, you got some people over here, they don't want anybody to be in that day. 1%, 2.5. These are some tough people over here. But you know, they're not too far off. Less than 5%. Less than 5% of the population. I don't know if there's any in this church. Maybe my friend Dave Orlick was getting ready to run 50 miles. But most people don't fit into that category. Okay? So with that, how many fit in optimum health? Okay, and you know it's less than 5%. How many people think 50%? How many people think 30%? Okay. How many people think less than 20? How many people think nobody? Okay, all right. 15 to 20%. Okay, now these are the people, you'll see, they're the ones that aren't necessarily blessed with a high HQ, but they are practicing the things that I'm going to be talking about today in the next couple of days. Next couple of days we're going to talk about. As a matter of fact, at the end of this, if you're afraid of Ebola, the flu, cancer, high blood pressure, after I talk these next couple of days, then I didn't do my job right. Because this is the most powerful, there is no reason in the world why Seventh-day Adventists who have the health message should ever have to worry about these kinds of things. And quite frankly, a bottle of aspirin should die of loneliness in your medicine cabinet with the very powerful health system that we have. Okay, so with that, how many people fit in suboptimum health? 50? Okay. Wow. You think there's a lot of sick people out there. How many people think more than 50? How many people think less than 50? How many people think more than 60? How many people think more than 70? Okay. Look at this guy. 70 to 75%. Most of the people in this country, this is the category of everybody that goes to doctors. Whether it's for acne, zits, everything. From very basic things all the way up to cancer, AIDS, etc. 70 to 75%. Let's see that question mark on it? That's how a lot of people are. Now, unfortunately, some of the people are in this church. And you have no reason to have that question mark. And if you understand this material that I'm going to be going through, and normally you need about you kind of get warmed up to this 7, 10 presentations. You really got it. This is a very powerful system. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to be condensing some 20 to 30 presentations into 4. So I have a challenge. And those are the ones that are in the school, they know this is a fairly grueling. They're doing very well. You have to go through a number of programs, about 20 to 30 courses. But then you really got it. It's a really powerful system. And incidentally, the way I got into this system, you heard him say, I have an MBA. I worked with IBM for over 20 years. I was an executive with IBM. This is my second career. I was blessed with poor health. So I was my first client. Okay? And I'm telling you, with this system, you can be in your 60s and 70s and function, have the biological, not the chronological. I'm an old man with young kids. Okay? And I know you guys feel sorry for me. If you hear, I have 3 kids in their 40s. I have a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old. I'm a great-grandfather, and I just joined the Senior Olympics thanks to Dave Wall. He was one of my clients, Dave, and he came in for health and nutrition, and in helping him, this is a few years ago, I was just talking to him. A few years ago, we made some corrections, and he came and he said, I'm getting all these PRs and everything. And I'm sitting there and said, wait a minute. I know this is for dynamic vitality and to enhance. So he encouraged me to get into the Senior Olympics. So I'm high jumping, hurdling, triple jumping. I just came back from the World Senior Olympics, and I'm going to be 70 next year. I'm not supposed to be doing this. And 30 years ago, I was having heart palpitations, all kinds of allergies, etc. So the point I'm trying to say is, this is where I was. And I was as confused as everybody else until I found this system, which we're going to be talking about. Now, how many are in debilitating illness? Not a whole lot. Now, these are the people that need conventional medicine. You have to be hooked up to a machine. And there's some very powerful stuff. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to put in context all the different health systems for you if you stay for the last presentation. Even the conventional versus naturopathic or the natural health approach. You see a context. I like hierarchies. We're going to talk about hierarchy of nutrients. At the end of this, I'm going to tell you the hierarchy of food preparations. We're going to talk about the hierarchy of healing. But this is that context, okay? So not less than 5%. And some people, just like some people are born with extraordinarily high IQ, some people are born with serious congenital problems that you need modern medicine, and that's what they're very good at. The problem is they're spending a whole lot of time over here because a lot of people don't realize that that's not the most powerful system. That system was designed for these people, to keep them on life support. And people are going, this system, the reason why it's called the practice of medicine, because they're practicing all these folks, so for these folks over here, they're prepared for them. So if you want to be a part of the big system of practicing and research, you're going to be like this. But I want to show you the system that you don't need any of this, okay? So with that, now that we have some context, we can see, remember I said earlier, these people are practicing what's called lifestyle medicine. That's what we're going to be talking about in the next few days and with diet. These people are doing traditional medicine and traditional diet. Okay, so now we're going to start having some fun. So now that we have this context, let's go through the hierarchy of nutrients. There are 4 fundamental principles for the hierarchy of nutrients, okay? And you're going to help me develop this hierarchy. But these are the principles that you have to keep in mind. Okay, you ready? And incidentally, you can take notes if you like, but I understand that they're going to package this. And I have this on my website, a version of this free. It's called, I do a lot of different versions. I think the version that's on the website right now is Let Food Be Your Medicine. But of course, there's a little variation. But so a lot of this information, and also, the free article on the hierarchy of nutrients is also on the website. We have articles. We're trying to be an e-lifestyle center, an e-academy, where you can go to our website for all kinds of free education and downloads. See, God, all belongs to God. It doesn't belong to me. So I want to make it available to as many people as I can. So we're putting presentations on there. You're going to know how to do poultices. You're going to know how to do hydrotherapy and get a lot of free presentations, mine and others. Some of our valued students will be on there as well. So 4 principles. Are you ready? Yes, ma'am. What's that? The name of the school? Oh, the international. Oh, www.iiom online. I'll show you at the end if you have time. International Institute of Original Medicine is called. 4 more fundamental principles. Are you ready? Okay, the first principle is, ready? God wants us to thrive, not just survive. Okay, so that's the first principle you have to keep in mind when we develop this. The second principle is, God gives us what we need in the highest quantity. Okay? Because he wants us to thrive. He loves us. Okay? You're going to love this person. You're going to see there's so much love out there that we take it for granted, that we kick it around, you know? Okay, we'll see. God gives us what we need in the easiest available form. Okay? And then the fourth one is God supplies all of our needs. Okay? All right. Those are the 4 principles of developing the hierarchy of nutrients. So, you're going to go from the highest quality nutrients to the lowest quality nutrients. And then we're going to show you how you can answer any question anybody ever asks you. And whether the guy has 15 PhDs or third graded, you will be able to stand up strong and assertively, unflinchingly and confident, and not being waved in the wind by this, that, and the other thing. Because it's a very powerful way to look at anything that you put on your table or put in your mouth. And I'll give you some examples at the end. So with this hierarchy of nutrients, high quality versus lowest quality, what's the first and most important nutrient? And this time, you have to raise your hand because if you're screaming out, I might not hear you too well. What's the first and most important nutrient? Anybody got a hand? Water. I see that handsome fellow over there. Water. You know, I did this at a Chinese church once. They were all Chinese. Had an interpreter. You know what the answer was? Rice. It's abundantly supplied. I said, are they paying attention? It followed everything. Any other hands? Okay. Garlic? Who said that? Believe in God first. Okay, how do you eat that now? How do you get that nutrient? Okay. Well, you're too tough. See, I need you for the last presentation. See, that wraps it all up. So you don't figure that out until the end. Vegetables, that's a good answer. That's very good. Very good answer. But you know what? Fiber. You're a cook, you said? Uncooked vegetables. That's a very good answer. Any other hands? James? Potatoes? Carbohydrates. Yes. Okay. The first and most important nutrient is air. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was formed. In the beginning, God created air. The thing about this, when did God created man? Is this a Christian church? Am I in the right place? No, when? Genesis 1, 26? Everything, before God created man, he gave man everything he needed. In the beginning, he gave us air first. And then if you look at 2:7, it says, he took man from the dust of the earth, and he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Air. It's so abundantly supplied and immediately available, we take it for granted. The second most important nutrient is what? I got to raise your hand, because see, that's what I'm saying. Light. Sunlight. Rest. That's a good answer. Who said water? Water. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Genesis 1:2. And if thou knewest the gift, he told the woman at the well, the gift of God, he would have given the living water. Jesus Christ is of our living. We need water. What is this planet, this big old planet? What is it most? It's 70 to 75% water. What is our bodies? 70 to 75%. We are an exact template of this body. All this stuff, we're 70 to 75% water. Some parts of us are more than that. The blood is more than that, right? It's more than 90%. The brain is over 80% water. Is there water in bone? How much? 3%. There's 20 to 25% water in bone. We are water. Air, so water is the second. Now somebody says sunlight. That was pretty good. But that didn't come in until Genesis 1:3, right? And God said, let there be light. And it's a good thing, this next part. That I'm glad I found this verse. I'd be in a whole heap of trouble. He maketh his sun to rise on the evil and the good. I'd be in a whole lot of trouble if it was just the good. He loves us so much that when we're cursing him and we're not obeying him, he's still shining his light on us. He's still giving us air. He's still giving us all this water. He's still allowing us to live on this planet. When we pay him no mind, when we don't listen to him at all, when we forgot in Genesis 1, 2, and 3, he gave us the first 3 nutrients we need. Okay? And now I know some of you guys are saying, I'm glad I had lunch before this guy got up here. What are we going to use? This guy, he's going to have us sniffing and walking in water. And he said, I'm glad I ate. I'm glad I ate well, because this guy, look at this. He's talking about these. When am I going to get my nuri or kuri or puri, whatever? That's good food. I love Indian. My grandmother on my mother's side is Indian. I love that food. That was good. But anyway, there's one more nutrient before we get into something you can put your teeth in. What's the last nutrient? And there's 5 food groups in Italy. This is the first food group. Those are all good answers. But let's go back to the Bible. Oh boy, you guys are too tough, but you're a little bit ahead of me. It's earth. In the beginning, what did God create? And what else? The earth. Genesis 1:1. We were born to live on this planet. Not Venus, not Mars, not the moon, Earth. And what does Earth have? Earth has all of this nourishment that we need. So, you guys are going to be happy about this because I'm going to give you something you can sink your teeth in now. Let's start the second food group. What is the first food in the second food group in this hierarchy of nutrients? So you can see these are the basic nutrients, right? What's the first food? Some people, I heard somebody say vegetables. What do you say? Fruit? How old are you? Yeah. 11? What grade are you in? 5th? Okay. Remember I said when we started? 3rd grade education, common sense? This guy's overqualified. And he's right. It's fruit. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed on the face of the earth, and every tree with the fruit of the seed in it. This will be your meat, your food, right? Genesis 1:29. Fruit. Now, we're going to pause here because once you understand this, you're going to be able to really fly through the hierarchy of nutrients. Let's talk a little bit about the characteristics of fruit. First of all, my favorite author in the Bible says, the more we depend on fresh fruit, just as it is plucked from the tree, the greater will be the blessing. Let fruit be placed in the table in abundance. Now, most people don't even consider fruit a food. They think it's a dessert, maybe, or a snack. Okay, would it surprise you to know that there are a handful? When we were in California, we worked with the Oakland Raiders. These are big guys. There was one guy that we worked with. He was 275 pounds. He was a vegetarian. He didn't want the rest of his team or anybody else to know. He was using that as a competitive advantage. There are people that are pure fruitarians. In my book, I talk about this weightlifter, Mr. Europe, and big, strong, strapping guy. He was a pure fruitarian. He ate nothing but fruit before, during, and after his training. Had bigger and stronger muscles than all of his meat and dairy eating competition. Okay? His name was Colin. See, it's in the book there. But anyhow, fruit. Now, let's talk a little bit more about fruit. how does it relate to those basic nutrients that I just told you about? Okay, I told you about air, water, sunlight, and earth, right? Okay, let's break it down. Where does all your air come from? The leaves of the trees are the lungs of the planet. All the leaves put out oxygen. What do they need for the structure of the plants? Carbon dioxide. It's a perfect synergistic relationship. All of our oxygen on this planet is coming out from vegetation, from trees. And where's the most vegetation? The leaves, those big trees with all those leaves. And the algae, all of that. So that's the air part. Water. All fruit are what? High water content. All fruit. Remember, the body's 70 to 75% water. All fruit is over 70% water. A lot of fruits, like watermelon and oranges, are over 90% water. So we get in our air, our water. Sunlight is locked into every seed. And now fruit can do something that human beings can't do. Fruit can eat dirt. We can't. Some of us do. Sometimes some of us eat something worse than dirt, but they can go, they have these roots that go way down into the earth, pulls the water out of the earth, has the sun in all the seeds, and all of that minerals, all of that stuff that we need, all the vitamin, minerals, and all those phytonutrients that you can't pronounce, all those big multisyllabic words, it makes it out of the dirt. It pulls it out there, the bacteria, the worms, and it filters the water. The water in fruit is filtered. People put these filters on their houses, charcoal filters, etc. God's filtering system takes dirt and water and cleans it all up. All right? And it provides all of the basic nutrients. Okay? In the highest quantity, easiest available form, designed in the original plan for us to thrive and not to survive. People don't think of it that way. Now, God, when he said in Genesis 1:29 that fruit will be a food, he didn't give a whole lot of proof text. He didn't give a whole lot of Encyclopedia Britannica. He just put it out there. And we just ran right by it until we got into Genesis 9:4-6. We said, now you can eat a little bit of meat. You know, after the flood. And they said, oh, yeah, we can eat meat? And then we go into Exodus, into Leviticus and Deuteronomy, the clean versus the unclean meats. Kicking aside, this is what the original plan was. Let's look at some further context here. God took the dust of the earth, he formed man, and he put the breath of life in him, right? That's where man started, right? And then he said, okay, now that you're out there, I'm going to give you air, water, sunlight, the earth, all of that, and I'm going to put together my manufacturing, you know, when GM builds cars, they go to a plant, right? And they take wheels and batteries, and at that plant, that manufacturing facility, they build cars. What God said is, I'm going to take this fruit, and in the highest available way, I'm going to put together these basic nutrients. After I form you, I'm going to sustain you in this manufacturing facility that I gave you. This air, all these basic nutrients, I'm going to put in the highest available form. Easiest, you know, Adam, he didn't even have to go shopping. All he had to do was sit under the tree, and the apple would fall on and says, it's lunchtime. I mean, it's easy. What did he have to do? Nothing. This is a loving God. And what we do is, as he's handing out the apple, we want to run by for that. Well, this is veggie. This is 7. So for the veggie turkey, tofurkey, or wham, or rubber chicken. I knew this pastor, his wife made this rubber chicken so good that I even liked it. I used to eat meat. It was good, but it had nothing to do with what God gave us. So, context, right? The gift, plant foods are God's manufacturing facilities. All God's plants, his manufacturing facilities that he provided for sustaining mankind after he formed man from the dust of the earth and breathed into the breath of life and gave us plants to maintain his awesome creation. Okay? Now that you start to understand this, you can really appreciate this hierarchy of nutrients. The hierarchy of nutrients is directly related to food's ability to provide God-provided basic nutrients created by Him for outrageous health and vitality. See how fast we're going to be able to go through these next few food groups? Because now we have a context. It's a context where He was right, that God gave us. Right from the beginning. First He gave us the air, the water, the sunlight. He put us on this earth. He didn't put us on Mars. And then He said, let me form you, and let me give you a way to live initially we were designed to live forever. And what was that food we were designed to live forever? It was fruit. It wasn't tofurkey. It wasn't veggie pizza. Now we'll show you where that fits in the hierarchy. Chocolate, somebody said, well, carob is a fruit. So He did give us a good natural vegetarian. So now the hierarchy of nutrients, somebody said vegetables earlier, and this fills out the second food group. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. That's the highest quantity, easiest available form, high water content, right? Now, you say, well, nuts and seeds aren't high water content, right? But nuts and seeds are botanically what? But they're botanically a fruit. A nut and seed is a seed with a hard shell. A fruit is a seed with a softer, high water content shell. And even here, God is teaching us. Remember I said, in the easiest available form, abundantly supplied? Now, nuts and seeds aren't so easy to eat. So you can imagine Adam and Eve, he didn't have a nutcracker. So he took enough nuts, he had to get 2 rocks or something to break those nuts. So you just got enough to eat. It wasn't as easy as, so even there is saying, you don't eat as much nuts and seeds as you do fruit. You see how this is starting to work out of context? So when people start telling you about all that, so wait a minute. But it's not giving me what I need in the highest quantity, easiest available form from the hand of God for dynamic vitality. Not to just, hobble along. Some of us want to just make it to the problems, and we want to hobble. We want somebody to drag us over the finish line. You want to hobble. When you see that, you want to, and if you eat like this, and then this, wait for me, Larry. This is what He designed us for us to do. Next is grains and legumes. See, people, they think you need grains. That's down the chart. Now, are these provided by God? But let's get some context. What's higher in water content? Fruits and vegetables are higher than grains and legumes. There are so many people focused on these beans. Some people are going to jettison themselves to the promised land with all the gas they're creating. Beans have a hemicellulose covering that you don't have an enzyme to break down. And you see all these vegetarians, they're beaners. They're beaning. People like me will have a business for a long time if they're not paying attention to this. So you don't need all the, they're going to get up there faster than, who's the guy that went up in the chariot? Elijah. Elijah be up there, boom. You just rock and propel yourself out after your beanie dinner. It's not that good for you. They're drier. Now, can you sustain yourself? Now, what's the value? The value is it has long shelf life. So if you go into war, you can stack those beans and you can run around for a couple of months. That fruit will rot in the bag. So it does have value, but let's get context. Is it going to give you dynamic vitality? Is it going to give you survival? So if you're graining and beaning, you're in survival mode. You're not in thrival mode. Okay? What's the fourth food group? And you can't say anything because you're too smart. You got to give some of these other guys a chance. Okay? Okay, what's the fourth food group? Somebody said carbohydrates. I heard somebody say meat. What's the fourth food group? Rice? We already did rice. Protein. Grains. Well, no, we got grains. We got grains already. The fourth food group, this young fellow over here. He's right. Flesh foods and dairy. That's the fourth food group. Now you notice, a lot of people, this guy's coming and say, I'm doing everything that the ADA, the American Dietetic Association, telling me, all these scientists are telling me, I'm eating all this meat and getting all my protein. Why am I so sick? He got a big question. And see, these guys, they're the ones that come into my office all the time. Now, can you see how easy my job is? I have the easiest job in the world. Because it's so simple, but it's not easy. All I have to do is say, no, you need to eat more fruits and vegetables. That's very easy to say. Very easy to find. Okay? We'll come back to that in a second. But what is the fifth food group? There's one more food group. Chips and stuff. Okay, you see, I see what you like. Okay, chips and stuff. Okay. You saw somebody else's plate. Yeah, right. Okay. Okay, what's the fifth food group? Okay, there you go. Did you see this presentation before? Did I steal it from you? No, where do you get all that from? You're right. Processed and refined foods. Everything that comes in the box, can, or bottle. Okay? So, interesting thing about this, though. When you look at those four principles, the thing that you can say about food groups 1, 2, 3, and 4, one thing that you can say about it is God has something to do with all of those. God had nothing to do with this. It's better to put your trust in God than put your confidence in man. There's many things that seem right to a man, but in the end it leads to destruction and death. Isn't that what Proverbs tells us? Processed food, it's the part of the worst diet. So see how easy this was to put this together? So when you look at this context, in the hierarchy of nutrients, perfect health, good health, you can see this guy is happy. And if he's down, he might not know what a disaccharide is. He might not know what oligomeric paranthocyanidins is. He might not know what superoxide dismutase is. He might not know what any of these polysyllabic words are. But if he's eating over here, he's going to be healthier than all of these PhDs over here. You see? You're starting to see, you guys are starting to learn everything you need to know. Now, you don't know all these big words, but do you need to know? You need to know where to find your fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. And then maybe some grain, right? Leave those beans alone, right? Tell them, put those beans away. Or sit in the back pew someplace. Okay, right. So, this is the hierarchy of nutrients. Now, I prayed on this. I've been doing this. I tell you, I was blessed with poor health. And when I got into natural health, you heard I have 3 doctorates, a PhD. When I get into something, I get into it seriously. When I was in school and I decided in the 6th grade I wanted to do well, I became general excellence. I graduated #1. As soon as I got serious. I read everything. I studied all the philosophy, all the major philosophies. Buddhism, Hinduism. I was this far from becoming a Taoist. As a matter of fact, if you stay tuned, I'll show you how I became a Seventh-day Adventist in the next presentation. That is my second favorite presentation because that's how I got to find out that you guys have a secret. You guys have original health secret that you don't even know you have. And those of you that know you have it aren't even using it. And that, as a matter of fact, and I'm going to tell you, if you have time, I'll tell you a quick story about, I jumped over, I said, I'm going to become a Seventh-day Adventist to be with all the people that think like me. And boy, I have to wear a lot of armor because I'll show you the scars on my back. But anyhow, the point is, this is the health continuum. These are the nutrients. And then, you know what's nice about this? And this is, I talked about Dave earlier. Now, if you're down here and you have a big question mark, you don't have a clue of what's going on, most people are eating down here. Right or wrong? Eating all these grains, and once in a while, you'll see some wimpy piece of lettuce crying on the plate. And then you really got to listen to the fruit, because if you don't eat fruit right, it's such a powerful food that if you don't eat it right, you're doing yourself harm. You really need to listen to the next presentation for that, though, because what we're going to talk about now is what are the right foods to eat. This is part of how to eat foods right, the next one. Okay, but down here, what this is saying is, and this is where I was. I was down here thinking I used to think pizza was a health food. I used to listen to everybody. It had all your fats, your carbohydrates, and your protein, right? All in one. And I was wondering why I had skin problems. I had all kinds of issues. I got chronic low back problems. I had heart murmur. As a matter of fact, it was funny. When I was 55, because I don't go to doctors anymore, over 20 years since I became a naturopath. I don't go. I had to go for insurance. And I wanted to get insurance because I had kids. Otherwise, what do I go for a doctor for? I have what is called Mack truck insurance. Unless I get hit by a Mack truck, I don't want to be anywhere near it. Because that's where they're really good. They can sew you up and put you together. And you know, if I get hit by a truck, don't tell me about no hierarchy of nutrients. Don't tell me about get me to a hospital quick. Let them patch, and then I'll eat later. Then I'll get back on the plan. But the point here is, remember we said that 15, what did I do here? Did I lose anything? Uh-oh. What did you do back there? What did you guys do to me? What did you guys do to me? Help me. I have so much dynamic vitality that the electricity just shot in here. but anyhow, the point is, these people are here. He's happy. He might not know why he's happy, but they're doing these kinds of things in various forms. Maybe a little bit of fruit and vegetable, which is the point is, even a little bit can take you to this area. Now, if you want to get into dynamic vitality, the point of this is, with all these problems that I was having, no matter where you are, based on your requirements, and there are genetic differences, I'll acknowledge it, based on your requirements and your capacities, all you have to do is chip away and go up as high as you need to in terms of percentage of this in your diet to move into this area. Now, I'm trying to get into this area when I was down. Now, I was blessed with poor health. I literally did almost die a couple of times. I had chronic bronchitis when I was a kid. And, you know, of course, you got the vaccinations back then, and you went to the doctor. Nice doctors. They used to make health calls back in the last century. When I was born, back in the 40s and 50s. So, all these different issues, and like I said, I know if I didn't make any changes, I would not be in front of you today. And I'm the oldest in my family, and I'm the healthiest by far. The only one that doesn't have any surgeries. My youngest brother is dead already. My second brother, he had bypass surgery and angioplasties and all cardiovascular. You know, my grandparents on my mother's side both died in their mid-50s. So I have the genetic predispositions and all those different issues. But as I said, no matter where you are, and like say, for example, I don't like to use myself as an example, but they say somebody like me who doesn't have great health. I might have to be on the 60, 70% in this area, whereas you see this handsome guy over here, next to the beaner over here? See, he probably can get away with 20 to 30. So that's why I said, based on your requirements and capacities. Now, if he wants to run this whole area, if he does 70, 80%, boy, I'd have to work. You know, I tell you, I'm in the Senior Olympics. And quite frankly, you know, I'm in the toughest event out there. There's a lot of 50-year-olds that don't. My main event is something called the triple jump. You know what that is? You have to run full speed, run, jump, and land on the same leg. Jump again as far as you can, and jump and throw yourself out and land in the dirt like a fool and go as far as you can. There are a lot of, and I just came from the Senior Olympics in St. George, Utah. There are 50-year-olds that are balking, crying their hips and this, that, and the other thing. And so what the point, and again, I don't want to use myself as an example, but I just want to make the point that I'm a person that was down here, and now next year I'm going to be 70, and I'm just excited about going to the world competition in Lyon. Now, I might not ever go, because I have to pray. God might say, you have to come back to the Remnant Church and learn sitting at this guy's feet to learn some more. See, so if he tells me to do that, you won't see me. But the point is, you can work yourself up to dynamic vitality. Do you see how that works? Then I said, you can answer all kinds of questions. So where does spaghetti fit in this? I can't hear you. Ooh, somebody said processed. That's down here. Where does vegan pizza fit? Ooh, okay. Now, if you're a Seventh-day Adventist and you pray and you beat your heart 3 times a day, saying, God, I love you. Vegan pizza. What's that going to do for you? Proverbs 28:9 says, if you turn a deaf ear to my law, what's the rest of it? Even your prayers are an abomination. So praying is, you got to follow him. You got to listen to him. You have to obey him. Where does vinegar fit? Okay. Where does fish fit? The meat department. Who else? Any other answers? Hold that answer. That's a very good answer. Right. Yeah. Well, it fits in there. Well, I'll elaborate later. But actually, it started out here. Raw fish. How many people eat raw fish? Yeah, sushi, sashimi. That was one of my favorite foods. And I'll tell you the secret how to eat that, incidentally. See, there's 2 parts of health. There's science and then there's the art. How do you eat? How are you supposed to eat fish? With a lot of... Okay, you need to say for the second presentation. We can talk about proper food combining. Okay. All right. But it started out there. Where does chicken fit? Okay. Hold on to that answer. Where does cabbage fit? Food group 2. Where does lettuce and tomato on whole wheat toast fit? Well, that's a combination of 2 and 3, isn't it? Where do beans fit? Yeah, low 3. See, now how do you cook beans so you don't have to be jettisoned to the promised land? Soak them in water for 24 hours. Who does that? See, that's why you're sitting in the front row. And see, because they're doing it right. See, the thing is, the point is, you just made my point. When you start going out of here, you got to be smart. You don't have to be smart when you listen to God, but see, you're smart, so you can disobey. I'm not telling you to, but when you get down there, you got to be smart. So now, if you take some of these grains and legumes and you sprout them, what happened? You took a food over here and you moved it up to here. It's even more bioavailable and more nutrition, you see? But you got to be smart, okay? You're starting to see how this is powerful? Okay, where do apples, oranges, peaches, pears, and plums, all those things that when you're in the supermarket, you run away from? Fruit, okay? Now, okay, I'm going to ask a tough question. And this isn't mean to say anything bad about my friends in the conventional medicine, but where do drugs fit? It's one of the worst toxins you can put in your body. It's a poison. Now, do they work? Stay for my hierarchy of nutrients. Do they work? Do they have a physiological effect? They do. But now, see, I want you to have a context for everything you put in your mouth. Because when I talk about correct nutrition, when people come into me, guess what? When they say, why are you asking those questions for? You know, I can see you asking about my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Why are you asking me what pharmaceuticals I'm taking? I ask them that because people don't come to me for their high blood pressure problem. They come to me because they have diverticulitis, they have intestinal problems, they have belching and gas and all those other kind of things. And then I pull out the PDR. So, wow, this says abdominal pain and this. All drugs compromise the functional integrity of the entire gastrointestinal system. They wreak havoc on the liver, the kidneys, everything else. It's a food. See, anything you ingest, and people need to have this context. That's why I like this, because now you can see why this is my foundational presentation. Once I go through this, and when people call me, I have people that are still calling me from 15, 20 years ago. And they say, and then when I'm finished, they said, you know what? You say the same thing all the time. I said, it's not my program. I'm a messenger. I wish I could change it. Because if I can change it, I can change the way I deal with food. But it's not my program, and I just have to be a faithful and obedient messenger. You see what I'm saying? So I say the same thing, and they say, and you know what they say? They say, well, I had to call you because all my brothers, my cousins, they think I'm crazy. But you straighten me out again, or you put me back on track again. And Dave almost something to that effect when I talked to him. He said, well, yeah, I need to talk to you. He's getting ready to run a 50-miler. I'm afraid, he scares me. I'm a jumper. I high jump. You know how far you have to run to do the high jump? 6 or 7 steps, and then jump as high as you can. The triple jump, you have to run maybe 20, 30 yards. I cry if I have to run more than 400 meters. And now they want me to run in the Penn relays 400 meters, a quarter of a mile. I mean, I just want to run and jump and have some fun and go home. I don't want to be running for 50 miles. How can he? So now you understand when I said, you said, well, you could do that. And if you do this, I just have to sign my shirt on the back, get you to autograph my material for me. And that's what this will do. This will give him the ability. Now, he's a young fellow. Let me tell you a secret. Don't tell any of my competition. But all I had, you know what? Let me put this in context. When I started doing this about 15, 20 years ago, I used to say my objective, I said I'm in this for the long run. I said my objective is to break the record for the shot put for people over 100. And invariably, there'll be some heavy-set person in the back saying, you're too skinny. And you know what I said? How many heavy 100-pounders do you know? All I have to do is show up at the park. And if I don't drop the shot on my foot, I'm going to win a gold medal. I tell you, I go to these meetings. They have these 90-year-old guys. You just have to show up for a lot of these events. And that's what I'm saying. You go to, I'll look at the internet, and I'll see if it's a world competition, there's like 15 to 20 people that are in my event. I said, wow, I want to go against the best. I go to maybe 7, 8 show up. And some of them are so taped up, they look like they're ready to go to barn to be shot, like a horse. They're wrapped up and gauzed up and this and that. And these are the kind of things that will give you good bone integrity. Now, I have chronic lower back problems. I really do. And that's what started me with this whole process. But you wouldn't know it. And that jumping and pounding, you got to be a little, and I'm a little bit crazy. I didn't have to say that. As soon as I started talking after about fitness, the guy said, this guy's crazy, honey. Let's get out of here, quick. But the thing is, I wouldn't be able to do it physically if I didn't have the bone density, the integrity, the circulation, the recovery from the workout. Now, if I did 50-mile training, then I have to take up another event, maybe checkers. That really beats up the body, and you got to be tough. And so this is what I was telling him in the beginning. You got to get those high water content foods. He'll tell you, unless he wants to be a dromedary camel running with water sacks on, he got to get his body well hydrated. He has to build it up so he can go through that full process. So you're starting to see how this can be a very powerful mechanism for talking about a lot of different nutritional issues. So, biblical perspective, remember we talked about this? We were originally given seed-bearing plants, fruit, and trees with seed-bearing fruit in it. And then later on in 3:18, see, that's all we needed in the beginning. It wasn't until after the fall of man, in 3:18, where it said, there'll be thistles, this and the other, and you'll eat the herb of the field. And guess what? See, we didn't need herbs. We didn't need medicine before the fall, right? Because we were designed to live forever. Now we need medicine. Guess where God's hid all that medicine? In the herbs. I have guys coming in as clients again. I'll give you an example. There are only 3 types of drugs for blood pressure. They're either beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, or ACE inhibitors. They're inhibiting and, causing vasodilation. Did you know that in a plant called hawthorn berries, they're loaded with beta blockers and calcium channel blockers. And people don't know it. So they're going after this drug where God gave us the herbs of the field as our medicine. And what he said was, the tree of life will bear its fruit every month. There's always fruit. No matter where you live in the world, you can get a hold of fruit. And then over here, the fruit will serve for our food and the leaves for our healing. And Genesis and Ezekiel 47:12. So he gave us all of that. And there's less than 2% of all the plants that have been studied for their medicinal value. Isn't that sad? But you go any place in the Word, and there are some herbs out there that are more powerful than chemotherapy. And people will run, it's called heroic medicine because they get themselves so beat up being a hero when there are these natural things that God has provided for us. My favorite author outside the Bible says, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and grains impart a strength of power, a power of endurance. Okay, there's that 50-miler. And a vigor of intellect. Some of us need some of that are not afforded by a more complex and stimulating diet. It has everything. So this hierarchy of nutrients is a way of dealing with just about every single health issue. And in those same councils, it says, in grains, fruits, vegetables, and nuts, remember back, when we look at this again, and this area right here, that's what she's talking about, all the way up to here. You know, she doesn't mention a whole lot about beans and peas. I wonder why. That must be an Adventist thing, huh? Somebody said, oh, how much protein do you need? You can answer that with this, too. You know, when people say, when I do this hierarchy of nutrients, they say, well, where are you getting your protein from if you don't eat your meat? What's my answer? You get your protein from the same place these animals that we eat get it from. Where do they get it from? Eating fish? Eating veggie burgers? Where's a horse? Anybody can outrun a horse? They eat either grass or oats. They're not eating meat. As a matter of fact, when they started feeding meat to cows, what did they get? Mad cow disease. That's where it came from, when they started giving them meat. And we have people with mad human disease. Seriously. When you really start to understand this, it really affects your brain. Affects their brain, too. We're going to have some fun this afternoon for any of you guys that can stick around. But see, the point is, in grains, fruits, vegetables, and nuts and seeds are found all the food elements. Now, do you need to know what these food elements are? Do you have to be able to pronounce these big words? No. All you have to do is eat the foods, and you get the value. You don't have to know what a disaccharide, a terpenoid is, a phenol, a lemanoid. You don't need superoxide dismutase. None of those big words that I thought I needed to know. See, I started in this in the 1970s, and I knew all these big words. They wouldn't get me healthy. It wasn't until I started adding smoothies to my diet and juicing and more fruits and vegetables. That's what helped. So you're starting to figure out everything you need to know about nutrition, aren't you? Okay? So let's talk about making the transition. Just give us a little time to finish up. Take a break, and hopefully some of you will come back, and then I'll tell you about my other favorite topic, proper food combining. But let's talk about a couple of tips for making the transition. This is when I started out, this was the chart. As a matter of fact, in 1988, when I first started out in this, they were saying that you had to have meat or dairy in the diet. In 1988, the American Dietetic Association said you can get all the nutrients you need if you eat an adequate amount of fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. Oh, actually, they said fruits, vegetables, and grains. They didn't even add in nuts and seeds. But what are they saying? They're saying that your diet should be grain-based. And then they throw fruits and vegetables up here. And then in the beginning, I don't know if you know this, meat and dairy wasn't even in there. But the meat and dairy industry lobbied so much that they had to throw it back in here. But they're saying that it should be grain-based. And then the more modern one looks like this. There's another fancy way of looking at the pyramid, where they're saying grains, vegetables, fruits. So they kind of got it right. But fruit is still more important than vegetables. So, again, you want to trust in God or you want to trust in man? There are many things that look right to a man, but in the end, now that's not bad. Now, milk, we'll talk about that a little bit more in the next presentation also. And then, look at it. See, even they're telling you those beans belong at the end. They even tell you don't need all those beans. Okay? So, how do you eat if you want to follow the hierarchy of nutrients, according to what I just talked about? And you know something? It's so easy that even when you go to the supermarket, it's telling you how to eat. All you have to do is you go around the edges. All of those things that God created, all those live foods, are around the edges. All the fruits and vegetables, even the meat and dairy, which is down in the low group, but everything that God gave us is around the edges. Everything man has done is in the aisles. See, so if you're doing it, even the supermarket is telling you. So say, hey guys, God gave you all these things around the edges. You don't have to go spend your time in these aisles. Okay, because these are the things that are life. They have to be right out in front. You can't hide them in the aisle. They die after a while. Now, if you eat that way, the only thing you need to go into the aisles for is toilet paper. Because you're going to have very good bowel movements. The only thing you won't need is toilet paper if you're eating most of the stuff in the aisles, because you used to be so gummed up and constipated that after that bean diet, you're going to pollute the whole planet while you're going up into outer space. You see what I'm saying? See, so with this plan, it's real easy for you. You notice they say 3 to 5. Now, a serving is what? This much, right? It's a handful. So whether you're 8'5" or 2'5", that's a serving. What is the physiological size of the stomach? This much. So most people have what I call big hand syndrome. You look at their plates, says that person must have some big hands, boy, because look at that. But this is all you should be eating. But I make it even easier for you. So they say, so many servings, you eat as much as you like. This should be the basis of your diet. I start off, not when I'm traveling. Actually, I do oatmeal and raisins, and I bring my own honey and stuff like that because I don't trust the fruit in the hotels. And we'll talk about that later. You know all that wax and everything. So you got to kind of be into. But see, I start the day usually with a smoothie, a big banana smoothie. I'll get some. I make my own almond milk, and I throw my bananas in there, some mangoes, whatever. If I'm doing supplements like maca powder or whatever. I throw that in there and make a nice, real tasty smoothie. Or fruit salad. My favorite cereal is a fruit cereal. I'll cut up some apples and put some berries and strawberries, put some almond milk on it. That's food. That's breakfast. What's cornflakes? Where does that fit? That's in the bottom. So you can have very nutritious. So the point is, fruits, eat as much as you like. Then vegetables, eat as much as you like. And then, based on your requirements and capacity. So you see what I'm saying? Most of your diet should be fruits and vegetables. And then you add the grains and the other starchy vegetables, the carbohydrates, which are very important. Which is the most important of all of the macronutrients? Carbohydrates, fat, protein, which is the most important? Carbohydrates. What's second? Fat. See? Everybody's falling into that trap. Protein is the least important and required nutrient. Do you need protein? You have to have protein. Hair and nails and hormones and enzymes, all that is made of protein. But God figured that out a long time ago. Most of the proteins, most of the amino acids, we make ourselves, 12 to 14 of them. We need the essential amino acids. All of them are in fruits and vegetables. And the body is so efficient that old protein, it recycles. It's the least important. Let me give you the construct that God gave us to show us that protein is the least required. Okay, you ready for this? What's the most important food for babies? Mother's milk. Mother's milk is what? 87% water, 7% carbohydrates, 3.75% fat, 2.9% protein. What is the fastest growth in your entire life? Your first 2 years. The first 6 months, you're doubling your weight, right? At 2 years of age, you are half your adult height. So if you have a kid, and at 2 feet, he's 3 feet, he's going to be 6 feet tall. If he's 2'5", he's going to be 5 feet. You can tell where you were at 2 years. The fastest growth in your life is the first 2 years. And guess what is the most important food? Mother's milk. How long? See, people think that that's not even a food. They think you have to have Infamil or this, that, and the other thing. But from a world standpoint, the average amount of time for breastfeeding is 4.2 years. I'm lucky if I can get the parents I work with, the mothers, 3 months, which is more the average in the United States, maybe 3 to 6 months. But you can, my first kid, our first kid, he was on breast milk for 34 months. The second one for 44 months. That's a very solid, but the point is, that's when you get your solid baseline, and all the nutrients. And guess what? After the first 6 to 9 months, your protein in mother's milk goes from over 2% to less than 1%. Nature is telling you, this is in the first year, that the fastest and the biggest growth in your life, the lowest requirement is protein. And all of us are worried. That's why we're beating ourselves to death. Now, see, when people really appreciate this, it's very liberating. I literally have had clients cry, say, wow, nobody's ever told me this. This is so simple. I'm doing all this stuff. And I remember when I went to, see, I just became a Seventh-day Adventist about 20 years ago. I was at Weimar. Let me say that. If you come to the next one, that's how I became a Seventh-day Adventist, arguing with Seventh-day Adventists about a very important health thing. We'll come back to that if you have time, because I know you guys want to take a break. But the point is, based on your requirements and capacities, you add in the grains, the beans, the other things. That shouldn't be the basis of your diet. This should be the basis. Okay? Does that mean you can't have a piece of cake or... Where does apple pie fit, incidentally? Huh? Say it loud. Processed foods, right. It started out, when God gave it to us, it was an apple. You know what? I searched all over the Bible. After Genesis 1:29, I can't find any place where he called a committee together or task force and said, hey, Moses, get Abraham and all. You guys have a little task force. And this stuff that I did, in Genesis 1:31, he said, I looked at all of what I did, and it was very good. And I looked for every page. He helped me to find it. Where he pulled a task force and said, help me to make it better. I can't find it. And yet we want to have apple pie, we want to have vegan burger, and we want to have Adventist vegetarian this. Some of this stuff tastes like cardboard. And we're calling ourselves the Remnant because this stuff is garbage. That's worse than Remnant. That is the throwaway, some of that stuff. And some of us, we're very creative at making this wham and scram, and what's this called? The tofurkey? What's the chicken? What's the rubber chicken called? Help me. Chick something or other. Yeah, I mean, these fun. You know what? The problem with that is, just imagine your digestive system seeing, if it puts the fruit in there, it knows what to do with it, right? It knows what to do with the vegetable. They put one of these and they said, what is that? What am I supposed to do with it? Okay. So remember we started out? When we said these are the requirements? And we said water, carbohydrates, right? And there it is. And all of this is handled in the highest bioavailable form in fruits and vegetables in this hierarchy. Now, grains does have some of it. Okay? And meat and dairy. Now, when you eat meat and dairy, we only eat vegetarians. When you eat meat and when you have dairy, you're basically getting all these nutrients secondhand. They already took these nutrients in, and we're trying to get it out of the meat. It made their meat. And incidentally, you can't use it. It's a very inefficient way of getting the fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. Because you can't use that protein. It has to break it down to its individual amino acids and then restructure that into the proteins you need. So you can't use it. Whereas this has it in its most elemental form. Okay, you starting to see that? And then down here, anything that comes in a box, can, or bottle, or somebody's office, or a laboratory, these things are down at the bottom. See, so you see why I like this hierarchy of nutrients? It really helps me to answer all questions that come up on food. So when people ask me about this, that, and that diet, and I get it all the time. I mean, I'm still getting emails all the time. I said, well, since they know, if you know me, this is my signature presentation. I said, well, where does that fit? They answer their own questions. Now, they might not like the answer. They might not like me. But this is my answer. This is my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay? So, 10 practical considerations for eating right. Okay? After all that. You want to eat whole foods. Okay, I'm going to come back to that. Because remember we said where does chicken fit and everything? And it was a fourth grader. So you're a little bit advanced. Fourth grade asks a question, and I'm going to show you one final chart that will help you to put all this in some kind of helpful context. Eat less sugary, dairy, fresh foods. That makes sense, right? Now, whole foods mean what? It means as it comes off of the bush, as it comes out of the ground, the tree. It's the whole food, not processed, refined, right? And so when people ask me about this particular food, they say, well, this potato chip is made in olive oil, this, that, and the other thing. I say, okay, let me see that. Now, which bush did that grow on? Which tree did it? They got, I don't care what, it's a processed, refined food. You can dress it up, you can put some lipstick on the pig, but who's going to kiss it? Eat no diet foods. This is where they get a lot of people. Eat healthy snacks. What do I mean by that? If you're hungry, if you're going to run 50 miles, like my friend did, normally you shouldn't eat more than 2 or 3 meals. You better have a snack. But what's a healthy snack? Right. What else? Celery, lettuce, cucumber, vegetables. There's a context. I'm not going to do this presentation, but you want efficiency. I'll talk about it in the next presentation. Because you can see I have too much fun, and I can get easily going down a rabbit hole. Okay. Eat large. Now, this is a little trick. You know, the Bible tells us when you go to somebody's house, you're supposed to be respectful. And when I go home for Thanksgiving, you know, my mother used to say, you know, there were 6 of us. I was the oldest. Who got the drumstick? Thanksgiving. I was the oldest, the ugliest, and the meanest. Got my drumstick. And even when I was older, I was still kind of ugly, but my brothers got bigger than me. I still got the drumstick. So I come home for Thanksgiving. Here I am, a vegetarian. I just came out of the baptismal font. Jimmy? I said, oh, Mom, you think I pull out the skull bones and the cross? No! You heathen! Get away from me! You're going to hell with that kind of... No. Thanks, Mom. But you know what? The trick is, you take a little bit of it, right? And there's so much vegetables and salad on it, you can't even find that turkey. And you know what? I said, guess what, Mom? My brother can have the turkey. He deserves it. He earned it. And so the point is, if you know you have to go out, eat yourself a large salad. It fills up, gives you a lot of bulk. And then when you get that smell. Now, I'm from the old days. I mean, can I do some true confessions? I used to eat shellfish and shrimp, pig's feet. And sometimes you go around some of the old friends, get that smell? But you know, if you get enough vegetables in you, right? You have control. Otherwise, you know, the chicken can be walking in the back, you'll rip his leg off and start eating on it. If you're hungry, so this is just an intelligent way. Don't go someplace starving into a fast food restaurant. You see, practical considerations. And then here, eating things right. I don't have a whole lot of time to go through all of this. These are some principles, but the ones we're going to focus on is this one, and then we're going to talk about this tomorrow when we talk about Ebola and all that, how to practice all the laws, because they really need to be integrated, right? And so, as I promised you, when you look at this, one of the questions I ask is, well, where does chicken fit? Fish. Now, so there is a hierarchy also of food preparations. Okay, so and you know, people say, well, what about frozen? What about sprouted? Which one are you getting the highest yield from? Again, I like hierarchy, so let's take a look at that real quick. So, the hierarchy of nutrients, you know, now nutrient preparations. The highest bioavailability is living food, sprouts. Remember we talked about those grains and beans? You water them. That's the highest bioavailability. You get 70% of it goes directly to the cellular level. Isn't that good news? So, and my wife, she loves sprouts. She likes the clover sprouts or whatever she's sending me to get. There's all kinds of sprouts. You can make this in your own home. You can make smoothies out of it. You can put it in your sandwiches. You can put it in your soups. You can put it on your salads. That's the highest. Raw juice. Part of a cancer healing diet is putting people on a restrictive diet, meaning more juicing. Juicing concentrates all of those nutrients. You can't eat 15 carrots. But if I put 15 carrots, you can, all of that stuff. You see? And it goes, you see how much you, now you might say, why is it only 30%? Why is it only 30% going to the cellular level? And you can't tell because I know you know the answer. Why is only 30% of raw food going to the cellular level? Fiber! You got that roughage to move you from bowel motility, right? So all those nutrients, the nutrient part, the water, and the vitamins, minerals, now the enzymes, and see, fruit is so efficient that it will eat itself up. If you put it down there, it has enzymes in it. What's the value of that? You don't have to use your own pancreatic enzymes. So you're extending your life. You're maintaining your organ reserve. You starting to see how this is powerful stuff? Okay, so you can see raw food, then juicing, 90% to the cellular level, right? And then you go down. Frozen is pretty good. See, so this is meant out. Now, when you start getting it, now, this is what it, cooked 40 to 100%. The reason why I held off on that other one, most people don't eat raw meat. They cook it. So the highest bioavailability of the nutrients are raw. But we have very strict statutes in the Bible. You don't eat raw. You don't eat the blood. Life is in the blood, disease and germ. So we can't eat raw. We are told we're supposed to eat kosher, right? But we have to cook it. And it's all that junk we put on. Nobody likes meat. I have a presentation called Nobody Likes Meat. If you're hungry and you saw a cow walk by, you won't want to take a bite out of the side of him. Or rip a chicken's wing off. But you cook it, you put it in some grease, and you put some condiment. Boy, you tear that up. It'll be all hanging off your lips. Oh, you need a giant bib. But you destroyed the nutrient. You see what I'm saying? Am I right or wrong? So, cooked leftovers. Look at this. So even when you're cooking your good foods, your rice, your beans, be careful. Eat as much as you can use. Now, I take my leftover rice and I make rice milk out of it the very next day. See, so you need to conserve. You can make your own potato milk, that kind of stuff. You see what I'm saying? Microwave. You lose 90% plus all the added toxins. And then you can see all that stuff in the last group? There's nothing in there. There is zero. Your body, you know where you're getting all of the nutrients from when you eat processed foods? From your own enzymes and your organ reserve that has to rush out of your organs to nutrify you. You see what I'm saying? Starting to make sense? Okay, so now you got a context, right? So, summary. Diet of fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and grains provides the best sources of nutrient requirements. Dairy, protein, sugar, and all processed foods should be avoided as much as practical. And, everybody ready? Anybody? I saw a camera. Anybody want to take a picture? Stand. Okay. All right. God's plan is everything you need to know about nutrition. I start out saying, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about nutrition. You follow God's way, that's everything you need to know. You might want to know about all this other stuff. You might know a lot of stuff, but that's all you need to know. And if you know these things, it tells us in John 13:7, blessed are you if you do them. So you see? And see, this guy is a happy guy. Okay. But you know, whether you eat or drink, whatever you do, it's not about being big and muscular and good looking like these people in the front row. It's about doing it all for the honor and glory of God. Let's keep that context so that we can serve him better. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. So with that, we wish you health, happiness, and God's richest blessings. That's my website. And what's that? Somebody? Oh, okay. Well, it's IIOM online. We have a couple of cards if you guys are interested. I'd rather not talk too much about that on the Sabbath, to be honest with you. I'll talk about it later or tomorrow. But this was a lot of fun. And the question I have is, does the Bible and Spirit of Prophecy say anything about food combining? That's my next presentation. I think, did I run out of time? Am I okay? Okay, thank you for your time and kind attention. I hope I see you.